Hi folks, Jonathan Sullivan here. Today I want to talk a little bit about evangelization and its place in our catechetical programs. This was brought home to me the other day when I was outlining on a whiteboard the basic process a person goes through to achieve full initiation in the church. I noticed something interesting. I'm going to draw that diagram up on the screen right now so you can follow along. On my timeline I had three basic waypoints. The first was the birth of the person, because we have to start somewhere in the world. Second was age 7, because of its canonical significance regarding reception of the sacraments and whether an unbaptized person can be baptized or goes through the RCIA process. And then finally on the far end, full initiation into the life of the church as kind of the ending point. And we'll talk a little bit about some stuff beyond that as well. So here's what the basic process looks like, and there's two tracks. The first is for the person who goes through the RCIA process, an adult being initiated into the church. And the church tells us that this is actually our normative way that we understand people to be initiated into the church. So that person starts out at birth and then has no real process of entering into the church until after age 7. After age 7, at some point, that person is going to be accepted through the rite of acceptance, and then will be a catechumenate in the RCIA process. After another period of time, at least 1 year the RCIA tells us, that person will undergo initiation at the Easter Vigil and will receive baptism, confirmation, and the Eucharist. And at that point, that person is fully initiated into the church. Now for someone who's born into the church, after they're born, almost immediately they will be baptized. Then again, there's another period until after age 7, at which point that person will have their reconciliation and First Communion, and then another period of time which will depend on the diocese and the parish, and then that person will receive confirmation, and then again they are fully initiated into the life of the church. Now in terms of faith formation, what's happening during each of these periods? Well, for the person who's going to be going through the RCIA process, at some point there's going to be a period of evangelization, something that's going to bring them into an interest in faith, an interest in the church, that's going to lead them to the RCIA. Once they're in the RCIA, there will be a period of catechesis, which is what the catechumenate is all about. Now that goes up until the rite of election, at which point the person is going to be spending the remainder of Lent spiritually preparing to be received into the church at the Easter Vigil. After the Vigil then, there's the period of mystagogy, which is supposed to last for at least 1 year, in which the mysteries of initiation are further explored in depth by the person, and then presumably that person will continue a life of faith formation after that. For the person who's born into the church, on the other hand, they're baptized, and then presumably they'll be in some sort of religious education program in a period of catechesis, presumably all the way up until confirmation. After confirmation, and they're fully initiated then, depending on their age, they may be involved in a youth ministry program, or they may be involved in some sort of adult faith formation for the rest of their life. Now, we can also point out then some parallels between these two tracks. The period of mystagogy is roughly analogous with that period of ongoing faith formation. In fact, they can look very similar and may even be the same kind of programs in each parish. Obviously, the period of the catechumenate and catechesis resembles the catechesis that people will receive all the way through their youth up to confirmation. But then we have this outlier right here, which has no real parallel with the life of the person born into the church. For the person who goes through the RCIA process, there's some period of evangelization in which they're talking to Catholics, learning a little bit about the church, and deciding this is something that I really want to be a part of. In fact, the RCIA process tells us that there's that period of evangelization or pre-evangelization in the life of the person, that they're going to be, it may not be a formal process, but it's something that they're going to go through. But we don't have such formal recognition of a period of evangelization for the person who's born into the church. They're simply baptized and then immediately go through catechesis, leading to the other sacraments. It's not baked into that understanding of the person who's born into the church. I think this says a lot then about why we see so many people who reach confirmation and then never darken our doors again. They haven't been evangelized. We haven't been intentional about evangelization in our catechetical programs because it's not explicitly spelled out in the process. Now, for those of you who read my blog or follow some of the folks I follow on Twitter and somewhat, this shouldn't be too surprising. We've seen a lot of articles and talk about that need for evangelization, even in catechesis for people born into the church. But I think seeing it laid out like this in kind of a timeline graphic format really kind of struck home for me the importance of being intentional because it's not explicitly laid out in our processes. It's not explicitly stated that we should be evangelizing these people. I think for too long we've simply assumed that evangelization is taking place for those who are baptized as infants. But if we're not being really intentional about it in our catechetical programs, if it's not something that we're really taking into account that needs to be done, well, I think we can see that we're going to reap what we sow. So just something that kind of struck home at me. I hope it helps you to kind of visualize a little better the need to evangelize in our catechetical programs, the need to be intentional about evangelization and not just catechesis in our faith formation. Hope this was helpful. God bless.